Georgia Congressman Doug Collins has proposed legislation to fight hate and bigotry, writing in an op-ed back in October, anti-Semitism has no place in our hearts. Those words still very relevant today. Congressman Doug Collins joining us now. He's the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, good morning to you, and thank you for being here this morning. Horrific news to wake up to over the weekend. Your thoughts, as this is something that you have talked about, you have written about, and you're offering solutions to. First, to the trend that we're seeing today.
Well, it's very disturbing, especially the anti-Semitic trend that we're seeing. We're seeing it, frankly, all over our country. We're seeing it even to the halls of Congress, the BDS movement, other things that tend to just heighten this issue with the anti-Semitic atmosphere that's out there. And we've seen this recently in New York. What is good, though, is there are people fighting back. We've proposed legislation. The president himself took part of that legislation and signed an executive order just a couple of weeks ago that actually aimed at toning down at this anti-Semitic activity and rhetoric that happens on our college campuses and other places. So people are beginning to see this. I hope that their eyes will be open. This weekend is tragic. My heart goes out to those who are simply worshiping and had people who at the depths of their hearts were evil do evil things. And I think that is concerned whether you see it in the anti-Semitic activity in New York or in the issue down in Texas where the gentleman came in and started shooting people during communion, but people fought back. So it's a disturbing trend, but one in which also I think we do overcome because people do see the evil that is out there.
In your piece, Congressman, you write, quote, hateful rhetoric does nothing but pave the way to oppression and violence. Simply condemning anti-Semitic rhetoric is no longer enough. We must stand together and actively work to stop it. We put together some of the stats that paint the picture of this rising tide of anti-Semitism and these hateful acts. Nationally, over 1,300. This is this year, looking back at the rise that we saw in 2018. In New York State alone, over 300. Brooklyn, New York, over 120 incidents. You look at these stats, you look at the numbers put together with the Anti-Defamation League and the FBI, Congressman. You are offering specific solutions. You talk about the rhetoric that we see in Congress. You also talk about, as you just mentioned, the rhetoric that we see on our college campuses and some of the hateful acts that we have seen. What specific solutions are you offering?
Well, I think the biggest specific solution is call anti-Semitic activity for what it is. And I think that is when you have, especially the Jewish people who have been, over the history, marginalized and put in positions in which they have endured the Holocaust. They've endured many things over time in which people are not focused on. I think the biggest thing, though, is let's take a step back. Why is this out there, and why do we allow it to go on? No people group, no matter who they are, should be terrorized by others who simply hate them. They should not be in a position in which they are allowed to say things that encourage violence or encourage a position in which people can say it's okay to not like this or that group of people. We've got to get better than this. And I think this is in our country. When we take these steps forward, we say this language is in our country that when it attacks others, when it dehumanizes or demeans others, that is when it overcrosses the line. And we've all got to come together to realize that this country has given us the greatest freedoms in the world, the freedom of speech, the freedom of worship. Those are the things that we cherish, and we cannot begin to take those down simply because of our political views.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo calling it an act of domestic terrorism. The mayor here in New York City talking about an atmosphere of hate. As all of that has been going on, and what a horrific weekend it was to have all of this develop, we head into a new year where there is still a lot of uncertainty over what a Senate trial looks like for impeachment. Final thoughts from you this morning, Congressman, as you can manage our expectations. A member of the House Judiciary Committee, we saw and heard a lot from you in the last year. What do we expect in the new year?
Well, I'm hoping Nancy Pelosi will realize that she is not the person who is sole arbiter of the House rules and the Senate rules. She needs to decide that she started impeachment. She went through with impeachment. She is not like this president. She has led her conference off the cliff, I believe, in impeachment. And it's time for her to send the articles over to the Senate for the Senate to do their constitutional job. It is not up to Nancy Pelosi to do this. She's holding it hostage. What really bothers me is this. She told the world this was a solemn moment for her members to vote their conscience. And now she's holding it like a political tool. She has just shredded all acts of decency. Nancy Pelosi ought to be ashamed of what she's doing right now.
We will certainly see how it all unfolds as we begin a new year. Congressman, we appreciate you joining us this morning. Thank you.
It's always good to be with you. Take care.
You too.